Somewhere within the Kengan universe, an underground fighting tournament called Valkyria is underway. Its first combatant, the petrifying leopardess Tujuran, the disgraced boxing genius, steps into the ring. She is a former Japanese featherweight champion of the WWBC. Her record is 8 wins and 2 losses, one of which was for breaking the rules, resulting in her license being revoked after she caused severe injury to her opponent. A woman observes from the audience, commenting to her associate that Tuju is not a bad choice and doesn't look like a street punk. Her associate murmurs something into the phone before ending the call, instructing them to keep looking for fighters with good potential. This woman turns out to be the owner of Valkyria, Tenma Nozomi, who is watching to see if this fighter can satisfy her opponent. The referee then announces to the audience that the champion of Valkyria has arrived. She shouts that it's time for a revolution, reviving her fans as they chant in support. Her name is the Revolution Princess, Hina. Tuju's coach warns her that Hina may look like a kid, but she should be on guard since she has already won 3 fights and is the real deal. However, Tuju dismisses this, stating that Hina doesn't just look like a kid, she is one. She's confident that she will win the 5 million yen prize and that her luck is finally turning. Both fighters stand face to face as the referee explains the rules: no timer, no rules, fight with all you've got to keep the crowd hyped, and start when the bell rings. Tuju scoffs at Hina's 3 wins, claiming that this fight is just a stepping stone for her. She continues, stating that this match will show the big underground players what she's capable of. She adds that the underground fighting scene is where a bunch of small fries wash out, so none of them will stand a chance against her. She then tells Hina that she's going to see that firsthand. However, Hina isn't fazed by Tuju's insults and simply calls her a slowpoke. As they both walk to their starting positions, Tuju is confused by Hina's comment but brushes it off. This fight will be a contest between boxing and underground martial arts. Tuju deduces that Hina called her a slowpoke but doesn't care about any funny ideas in her head. However, for Hina to call Tuju of all people slow is a violation she won't forgive, and she promises to crush Hina. Both fighters now take their stances. Observing Hina, Tuju wonders how her guard is so low for someone who practices MMA. Shortly after, the referee begins the fight. Tuju sways her hands, planning to use flicker jabs. Tenma, watching from the sidelines, knows that flicker jabs are much trickier because their trajectory is harder to follow than a normal jab. The match kicks off as Tuju launches a flurry of flicker jabs at Hina. The speed of the jabs surprises the audience, but Hina remains unbothered. A boxer's jab is their fastest punch by a wide margin, clocking in at 40 km per hour. However, that's when they're wearing boxing gloves. Wearing fingerless gloves, Tuju's jabs are closer to 50 km per hour as she continues to flash them in front of Hina's face, proving to her that she's not a slowpoke. Despite seeing Tuju's fast flicker jabs, Hina remains unimpressed and once again calls her a slowpoke. Tuju is enraged by this insult and is now set on crushing Hina. One moment, she's a few feet away from Hina, the next, she sends a flicker jab at her, closing the distance instantly. However, Hina ducks the blow, slips through Tuju's guard, and cracks her hard in the face, instantly knocking her out. Tenma is disappointed that Hina had knocked out her opponent with a single blow yet again. The announcer declares Hina as the winner of this match, as she cheerfully comments that this is a perfect revolution. As Hina exits the arena, she is showered with praise from her fans. She then meets up with Tenma, who tells her that she's not making things easy for her. Tenma explains that Hina can win all she wants, but she can't keep doing it like that. Hina, however, is pleased to know that Tenma was watching her match. Tenma replies dryly, stating that she obviously did since she owns the place. Tenma, however, points out that nobody can miss Hina's insane, freakish strength at this point. But if she keeps this up, people aren't going to bet on her matches anymore, something a minuscule org like hers can't handle, or they'll go bankrupt. Hina asks if that's her fault and, if so, tells Tenma to bring stronger fighters, not ones like that slowpoke. In her thoughts, Tenma calls Hina a dummy, since she's already getting the best fighters she can. The problem is that there are no monsters out there like Hina. Hina then tells Tenma that she's counting on her to find strong fighters, ones who are strong, kindred spirits like her. Tenma now gets the feeling that involving Hina was a mistake, but she's in too deep. she decides she'll just have to use Hina to climb to the top. How was it that Tenma Nozomi and Hina crossed paths? To find that out, let's rewind time. The scene changes to another underground match. It seems like the audience isn't enjoying the match, as they make it clear with their chants. Two women lie on the ground, struggling against each other, as one of them grapples the other. This exchange bores the audience, and they shout for them to end the fight. The one being grappled, named Kawakita, tells the other woman to stop what she's doing since she's pissing off the crowd. The other combatant, Tenma Nozomi, who, at this time, was an underground fighter, tells her opponent to shut up and focus on the match. This makes her opponent furious but leaves them with no choice but to tap out. This again disappoints the audience, as they shout mean comments at the fighters. Later, both girls meet up with the underdog fight promoter, Mark Inuyama, who fires them both, ordering them to take their money and leave. This confuses Tenma, while the other girl hurls insults at the man. Tenma furiously asks Mark why she's the one getting fired since it was Kawakita who tapped. Mark explains that the crowd can't stand their fights. However, Tenma argues that she's a 3-for-3 rookie up-and-comer on a hot streak, asking, what more does the audience want? Mark tells her that the audience wants matches that actually end, not ones that drag out for 40 minutes and bore everyone, something unacceptable for an opener. He then asks Tenma if she knows why lightweight and women's divisions aren't popular in pro fighting. Tenma deduces that it's because there are fewer KOs, which Mark confirms. He explains that the audience wants fights with a big finish, which is why middleweight and heavyweight divisions are so popular. This is even more prevalent in underground fighting compared to public fighting, Mark adds. He continues, stating that when people come to their organization at the bottom of the ladder, they only care about brutality, not technique. The organization has never attracted customers with refined taste the way the big underground organizations do. Mark also points out that women's fights absolutely need a touch of eros, telling Tenma that her fights aren't sexy and brutal. Upon hearing this, Tenma deduces that the audience wants a show, not a real match. Mark agrees, stating that's unfortunately the case and that it's always been like that. He then points out that her skill set is better suited for public fighting. He ends the conversation by ordering her to take her things and leave. The scene then shifts to Kabukicho's First Avenue, where we see Tenma drinking at a bar, celebrating, or rather, lamenting, the fact that she's now a 27-year-old unemployed bum with her friends. The friend on her right remarks that saying she's in a bad way would be an understatement, while the other warns that she's going to drink away her fight money. We are then properly introduced to both friends, Mitani Hana, the Jinguji family boss, who tells Tenma to hold out and have hope, and Iori Ichika from the Metro PD Juvenile Division, who suggests they turn over the underground organization, describing it as a package surveillance operation. However, Tenma tells Iori not to be daft and explains that underground means they don't have a specific location they're stationed at. She also asks Iori if she isn't supposed to be a cop, to which Iori claps back, stating that she's here drinking with a yakuza and a jobless bum, asking Tenma if she thinks she cares about upholding the law. Tenma, confused, asks if being unemployed is illegal. Iori Ichika, Tenma remembers being stuck with her since elementary school. Iori used to be a detective with the anti-crime unit, which was a male-dominated field. She tried to keep her mouth shut and let her actions speak for her, but she ended up taking things too far to get results. Eventually, she butted heads with her boss and beat him half to death, which got her moved to the juvenile division. They reinstated her, but only to keep her on a leash and restrict her. Tenma then asks Iori if she thinks she can get back her old position. Iori thinks she might if she makes a historical achievement, but Hana tells her to just admit that she'll never get it back. Mitani Hana hails from an independent yakuza group and is the daughter of the Jinguji family's former boss and his lover. Tenma recalls that Hana transferred to her school and somehow got mixed up with her and Iori. In her first year of work after school, the former boss passed away very suddenly, forcing her to take over as the head of one of the weakest families in the organization. Naturally, the gang has no real unity and is bleeding members. It's all she can do to eke out minimal income in the shadows of the big players. Hana states that yakuza work isn't tenable nowadays, wondering how she's going to make a living. She reminisces about when Iori was still part of the anti-organized crime unit, noting that things were a lot easier for her back then. Iori points out that things were easier because Hina abused her friend privileges non-stop. She then states that she didn't come here to hear them complaining, and asks Tenma if she has any goals or plans to get back on her feet. Tenma admits that she doesn't have anything left. Tenma then sheds some light on her past. During her high school days, there was a martial arts gym near their school. The three of them joined, hoping to slim down, but soon, the other two quit, leaving Tenma, who kept attending. Tenma trained so diligently that she eventually fought professionally, participating in high-class cage fighting for a decently sized organization, and she was very good at it. Just when she was about to get picked up by a major organization, she found out that she had a detached retina, ending her career on the spot. She retired from public fighting but didn't want to let go of fighting entirely, so she turned to underground matches until now. A broke yakuza, a jobless bum, and a dirty cop. Losers is how Tenma would describe her and her friends. As they exit the restaurant, Hina offers Tenma a part-time job, just carrying suitcases from one place to another. But Tenma declines, stating that friends don't set friends up as mules. Hina offers her another job at one of her associated shops, but Iori interjects, saying that Tenma isn't cut out for that type of work. Iori then gets an idea and asks Tenma for help with the surplus of confiscated goods. She suggests giving them out to people who need them in exchange for profit. But Tenma declines again, as she doesn't want to partake in criminal activity. She's amazed that the authorities haven't caught Iori yet and asks her to cool it with the shenanigans. In the background, a group of women are quarreling with each other. Soon after, one of the women smashes a beer bottle in the other's face, warning her to back off. This only irritates the other woman, prompting her to strike back. A brawl quickly ensues as Tenma and her friends watch the chaos unfold. Tenma wonders what's happening, to which Iori explains that they're just a bunch of kids who like to fool around in this area. Observing the scene, Tenma comments that they look like gang members. Hina agrees, stating that a lot of kids like them have been popping up lately. Iori points out that they are all minors and that protecting and serving the streets residents is her duty. However, she admits that there's nothing she can do about it since she's wrapped up in restraints. Tenma can't help but notice that all of them are female. Iori reassures her that this is just a little scuffle between female groups and that there are male delinquents around the area too. Hina also adds that the Yakuza's hands are tied by the anti-Yakuza ordinances, so these children end up more worse. Iori calls them street trash, stating that it would be better for everyone if they all killed each other. This makes Tenma question Iori's sworn duty to protect and serve. Tenma then turns to Hina, asking why she doesn't use these kids for her under-the-table work. Hina states that she can't use them because they're uncontrollable. Iori wishes she could figure out a way to control these kids, as doing so would help her rise through the ranks in the force very quickly. They all head off to another bar, where they plan to enjoy the rest of their night. The scene shifts to Tenma's apartment, where she returns after the night out with her friends. She reflects on her friends' personal problems, recalling that Hina struggles to make a living as a Yakuza and Iori struggles to control the female gang members. Tenma decides to focus on her own problems and gets ready to go to bed. As she turns off the lights, she thinks to herself, noting that there aren't many underground organizations that take women. Even Underdog Impact and RG, which do take women, dropped her despite her being better than the bottom of the barrel fighters. However, she remembers a group in Osaka that used women for fights. As she drifts off to sleep, she notes that women's combat sports are only getting bigger in public fighting. She lies on her bed for a moment, pondering her thoughts, until suddenly she sits back up with an amazing idea beaming in her head. What if they could hit every bird with one stone by creating a women-only fighting organization? The scene shifts to a nightclub, where Iori states that it's the perfect place to host something like this, given that the place is soundproof and filled with delinquents. Hina approves of Tenma's idea, seeing that the business could be quite lucrative. However, Tenma tells her that this is just a test run and asks Hina if she's sure they aren't going to get caught. Hina reassures Tenma, explaining that she asked a non-family associate to set them up with the club. Plus, it's in a gap area where no other parties are involved, so nobody will be poking their noses into their business. After hearing Hina's reassurance, Tenma turns to Iori and asks about the performers. Iori states that they're all taken care of and that she's acquired some savage ones. The announcer of the fight introduces one of the fighters, the street-fighting chica, Shinohara Julia. The other combatant is announced as the Pummel Queen, Kobayakawa Yumi. If these girls look familiar, it's because Iori scouted them from the street brawl near the bar. Iori told the girls they could handle their beef without police intervention, so they took the offer. And just as Iori had planned, their friends came to watch the match, which in turn cleans up the street from these delinquents, solving Iori's problem of keeping them in check. Hana can't put into words how good of an idea it was to host an underground fighting tournament for girls. Tenma explains that this should provide a healthy income, help keep delinquents off the streets, and put a dent in the juvenile crime rate. Tenma asks Iori if she just wants the credit for it. Iori replies, stating that they'll split the take 3 ways. Tenma tells Hana that there should be no phones allowed, as they don't want the word to spread about this place. Hana assures her that she patted everyone down and collected their cell phones while they're inside. The referee, who looks to be under the influence of something, announces that it's time for the first match. Iori asks Hana where she found this far-out chick, and Hana explains that she got her from one of their associated places because she wasn't doing any work, so they placed her in the referee position. The referee gives the signal and starts the match. Both girls immediately punch each other in the face, making it clear that they don't know how to fight as they trade blows. Julia then follows up with another punch, grabs Yumi's hair, and pulls her down, sending multiple blows to Yumi's back. Julia lands a kick to Yumi's stomach and another to her face, knocking her down. Julia then mounts Yumi and repeatedly punches her face, until the referee tells her to stop, and announces Julia as the winner of the fight. The crowd cheers in excitement, and Tenma and her friends realize that they may have discovered something big. Soon after, the second, third, and fourth matches go by, ending the event and providing an entertaining spectacle for the spectators. Tenma and her friends then visit the best Chinese bar once more to celebrate their first event and the earnings they made that night. Hana is ecstatic that their first meet went well, seeing that the 3 of them walked away with a lot of cash from it. Iori admits that this side gig is not bad. She then checks her phone, and is happy to see that their business isn't being talked about on social media, which is a result of her threatening the customers. Hana likes this idea, seeing that threats from a police officer works wonders. She also notes that they can make this a regular thing if their business continues at this rate. But Tenma disagrees, stating that things won't work as they are because people are going to get bored real quick. Iori is confused by Tenma's statement, as they clearly saw the crowd roaring in excitement. Tenma explains that this is just the start, and today's show was no different from the bottom of the barrel underground org she left. The combatants had no technique and were just flailing wildly, which isn't something you'd see in public fighting sports. She adds that while the intensity made up for it, it won't work forever. She also points out that the crowd mostly consisted of friends of the fighters, who had nothing much to bet. So if they want this org to go anywhere, they'll need customers with fat wallets. Hearing Tenma say org, Iori and Hana are surprised she wants to turn it into something formal. Tenma reassures them that tonight's show wasn't an abstract failure, they have a real chance to go somewhere, and she doesn't want to let the chance slip away. Iori admits Tenma is right but has no idea what they could do to improve the situation. Hana agrees with Tenma and proposes using sexual attraction to attract customers by dressing their fighters in cute outfits and staffing the place with attractive women. She plans to do this by recruiting the attractive ones from her associated shops. Tenma thinks it's a great idea and states that it works for the hardware section of the event, but that still leaves the software part. Tenma notes that they'll need fighters who aren't just strong but also have charisma to draw people in like magnets. She asks Iori if she knows anyone who could fit the description. Iori says she doesn't know anyone like that, and the only people she can think of are the delinquents who litter the streets, whom nobody is going to want to fight. She adds that there's no shortage of dead-end delinquents and states that beggars can't be choosers. Suddenly, Iori remembers one specific girl so dangerous that she would be a perfect candidate. The scene shifts to Koyo High School, a girls-only school for the rich. Tenma, Iori, and Hana pull up to the school in a suspicious white van, scouting for their potential suspect. Hana asks if their unbelievably dangerous girl is supposed to be here, but Iori tells her to shut up and drive. Tenma points out that Iori hasn't told them anything about this girl, but Iori states that if she had, they wouldn't believe her. Iori then spots the girl and points her out in the crowd of students. She reveals her as Hina, aka the deadliest schoolgirl in Japan, a freak of nature who was once at the center of a plot to overthrow the government. Hina scoffs at the idea that a schoolgirl could be involved in such a plot. Tenma tells Iori that she's not so flush with free time that she can just mess around, but Iori retorts that Tenma does have free time since she's jobless. Iori then asks Tenma if she's ever heard of the Army of God. Tenma recognizes the name, asking if it's a religious group, while Hina describes them as being a little bit radical. Iori states that they're an ultra-radical religious cult, and was told this information from an acquaintance in public safety. She explains that 3 years ago, the Army of God was planning to use chemical weapons to enact bioterrorist activity. They planned a coup, claiming to bring salvation to mankind. Hearing this, Hina panics, grasping the true intentions of the group, but Iori warns them not to let anyone overhear their conversation. Tenma asks Iori if the police stopped them. Iori reveals they didn't, since the leader of the cult died very suddenly before they could enact their plan. With the leader gone, the members lost direction, and internal struggles tore the cult apart. Iori then points back to Hina, who was 14 at the time and known as Takashi Hina, the cult leader's adopted daughter. Iori explains that Hina has since been taken in by some rich people. Tenma asks if Iori is implying that Hina was scheming at the age of 14, which sounds like she was given a raw deal. But Iori reiterates that the cult fell apart after the leader's death. She continues, stating that one would think things would end there, but that's not the case. Iori reveals that public safety is keeping tabs on anyone who was involved with the cult, monitoring them every single hour of the day. She also shares that the cult's leader was serious about going to war with the government and had his most deluded followers form a special forces unit on par with the military. Every member of the unit fought at a professional level, living and breathing combat training with firearms. Takashi involved Hina in the unit, drilling combat training into her. All members of that special forces unit are priority surveillance targets, and naturally, that included Hina, but only for a time. One day, an order from higher-ups discontinued Hina's surveillance. Hina, confused, asks why they would discontinue Hina's surveillance. Tenma assumes it's because they thought she didn't pose any danger. But Iori dismisses this, revealing that a former adherent to the cult gave an anonymous testimony. The testimony stated that the leader had devoted every ounce of his being to bringing salvation to mankind but began calling for armed insurrection after adopting Hina. It became clear that Hina had changed him. Hina, visibly uneasy, asks if Hina was pulling the strings all along. Iori tells her that it's just a testimony and nothing concrete. But if combined with the surveillance ending, it paints a concerning picture. Suddenly, the door of the van opens as Tenma steps outside to confront the girl and challenges her to a fight. However, Hina warns her that she could get killed doing this. Tenma dashes toward Hina and throws a low kick to her thigh, but Hina quickly dodges and counters with a spinning roundhouse kick aimed at Tenma's face. Tenma manages to block the attack, which impresses Hina. However, Tenma is shocked by the sheer force of Hina's kick. She can feel it reverberate through her bones. Tenma analyzes what just happened, noting that Hina didn't just dodge her low kick, she seamlessly transitioned into a spinning roundhouse kick. Seeing this leaves Tenma terrified that a high school girl possesses such insane reaction time and torque. Meanwhile, Hina remains intrigued, saying, "It's funny, I thought you were a slowpoke, but now I realize I was mistaken." Excited, Hina urges Tenma to continue their fight. Suddenly, the sound of electricity crackles as Iori tases Hina, knocking her out. She then tells the girls to get a move on, while Hina teases her, saying, "Looks like you've acquired a new confiscated toy." The scene shifts to an abandoned factory, where the girls enter an old shaft. Tenma places an ice pack on her arm as Iori asks if she's alright. Tenma reassures her, relieved that Hina's kick didn't break her bone. Still stunned by their fight, Tenma says, "Hina is seriously insane." Iori replies, "I did warn you before you engaged." Meanwhile, Hina notes that they're just digging themselves deeper. Suddenly, Hina speaks up, stating confidently, "I'm pretty sure you all aren't public safety. They'd do a better job than this." Iori snaps, "Shut up. You only speak when spoken to." She then turns to the others, reminding them that Hina shouldn't have heard anything about her occupation. Hina feels the material of her cuffs, trying to figure out where they're from. She deduces, these cuffs are made of aluminum. You must be a police officer from a different department. Seeing her cover blown, Iori furiously glares at Hana, who apologizes. Hina, now confident, adds, I also noticed there are 3 of you. I could tell by your footsteps. Iori asks Hina if she's aware of her situation and threatens to lock her up for assault. Hina playfully responds, I was just defending myself. Iori coldly replies, there were no cameras on that street. If I report this, the police will believe me over you. Now understanding the situation, Hina says, so, you fought long and hard to catch me. Iori warns, your life is in our hands. Hina, remaining calm and confident, asks, do you really think my life is in your hands? Her remark sends shivers down the girl's spines. Iori wonders why Hina is so calm but soon realizes the reason. She recalls the time when the Army of God cult was developing chemical weapons. When the cult was dismantled, all their chemicals were supposedly disposed of, or so they were led to believe. Iori remembers hearing a different story from people in the police department. There was absolute certainty that before all the chemical weapons could be seized, some were likely stolen from the facility. Iori wonders if Hina possesses those chemical weapons. If so, it would explain why public safety ended their surveillance of her. The pieces of the puzzle begin to add up. Hana, now panicking, asks Iori if they can just leave this scary girl. However, Iori knows that if she tells Hana about the chemical weapons, she'd panic even more, so she decides not to inform her. Hina idles around in the chair until she asks the group, what would you like me to do? She promises that if it's within her power, she'll do it. This takes the girls by surprise, but Hina continues, calling out to Tenma. She's impressed that Tenma managed to block her kick, admitting that it's the first time she wasn't able to eliminate a slowpoke. Hina stands up and begins freeing herself from the handcuffs, casually remarking that she couldn't predict Tenma's movements, which she finds interesting. She then asks if they can keep playing, and requests that she be allowed to keep attending school, as she likes going there. As she stands with the handcuffs off one of her hands, the group notices that she dislocated her thumb to escape but quickly relocated it with ease. Hina asks again, what would you need me to do, as she removes her blindfold. The scene shifts to a music bar, where Iori asks Hana if all the customers are there. Hana confirms they are, adding that there are plenty of returning guests. Looking at the turnout, Iori is surprised to see that there are twice as many customers as last time. Hana reveals that there are actually 221 customers in total, staff included. Noticing the staff are dressed up as promotional eye candy, moving all over the place, Iori comments that it feels like overkill. Hana explains that the eye candy is key for customer retention. Tenma chimes in, admitting that she wanted a ring for the fight but sadly couldn't make it happen this time. Iori reassures her not to worry, as they have a lot of customers. Tenma then thanks Iori for scouting out the new fighter, as she was watching her warm-up, and admits that she's impressed by what she saw. Iori tells Tenma that she'll be fighting Hina, so she had to find someone worthwhile. Shifting to the main event, Hina bursts onto the scene, screaming, it's time for a revolution. The referee announcer introduces her as the Revolution Princess. The audience murmurs about Hina's appearance, surprised to see a schoolgirl fighting in an underground organization. Iori, confused, wonders why Hina is screaming about revolution. She also questions why Hina is fighting in her school uniform, but Hana explains that her costume will be ready for the next fight. The next fighter arrives, nicknamed the hair-raising killing machine, Mamos Mihana. Tenma observes that both Hina and Mamos have similar builds. Iori states that she's taken Mamos into custody before and was eager to meet her halfway with a simple request. She adds that Mamos is a top 20 judo contender in Tokyo tournaments. After dropping out of high school, Mamos enrolled in Rokushin Kaikan and worked her way up to first dan. Tenma realizes that Mamos must specialize in full-contact karate and is likely very strong. The referee asks if both fighters are ready to go, and both confirm they are. The announcer declares that this will be the first official match of the Valkyria underground fighting organization. The fight kicks off as both fighters stare each other down. Suddenly, Hina swiftly delivers a devastating blow to Momo's chest, hitting her so hard that she instantly goes down, ending the fight. The announcer is shocked by this outcome and announces Hina as the winner of the match, having landed just a single blow. Iori, confused, wonders how Mamos went down so easily. Hana tells her that even she can see that Hina is on a completely different level. Tenma is also shocked, realizing that finding opponents for Hina is going to be difficult. She knows that not everyone is going to want to fight in an organization like this. Hina grabs the mic from the announcer, shouting her catchphrase and asking the audience, "Did you enjoy the show?" The crowd erupts in cheers as they make it clear that they enjoyed the match. Hina continues, stating that she was disappointed with the fight and hopes to face someone much faster next time. She then holds up a stack of bills, announcing, "I have 5 million yen saved up, and I'll award it to anyone who can beat me in a fight." The audience erupts with excitement. Tenma wonders what's wrong with Hina, while Iori struggles to manage the crowd's energy. However, Hana sees this as a very workable development. She points out that even big organizations don't offer that kind of appearance fee. Given their small size, offering such a large sum is likely to attract individuals with exceptional abilities. Back in the ring, Hina wonders aloud how many fast fighters she'll get to face. The scene shifts to the Metro PD, where two individuals are having a discussion. The man behind the desk tells the officer that he has heard that they are the problem child of the police department. However, he warns that their antics does not apply here. This man is the Superintendent General, Takemashiro, and he tells Iori that he knows that she has been in contact with Hina. He demands to know what she is plotting. Iori sarcastically replies, "I don't know what you mean. My business with Hina is personal, we're friends." Take threatens her, asking, "Do you want to go back to the gang unit? Because I can arrange that." Iori reassures him, "It's nothing like that. All I want is for the cops to stay out of my business." Take assumes she's talking about her underground fighting organization and agrees to her demands, acknowledging that her org keeps small-time criminals in check. Iori nods, saying, "I'll keep Hina on a straight and narrow path. But I have one request." Take asks what her demand is, and Iori explains, "There's a list of psycho criminals that the PD has access to. I'd like to use them for leisure. But don't worry, it won't be for anything sinister." Take tells her it will take some time and that he'll bring the matter to the agency. Iori leaves the room and walks down the halls, thinking to herself. She notes that she can't afford to lose face in front of the superintendent but quickly brushes it off, knowing she has bigger fish to fry. She reflects on how all she's been doing is messing around with an ordinary schoolgirl, yet it was enough to get her summoned by the Superintendent General. It seems the rumors about her are gaining more traction. But seeing all this unfold makes Iori realize just how useful Hina is, and she plans to use her as much as she can. The scene shifts to Tenma, who states that Valkyria doesn't have much longer if things stay as they are. Hana, surprised, asks why. Tenma explains that something has to change. She can see that their momentum is petering out if they stay on this course. Hana is shocked to hear this, considering they've been making more and more money from each show. But Tenma tells her that it all comes back to Hina. She explains that after Hina offered the 5 million yen prize, they received a lot of fight requests. Tenma tried picking out someone who would be a good match for Hina, but her second match ended with a single blow. Her third match ended the same way. Just as they started to get a lot of fight requests, the interest quickly dwindled. Tenma states that Hina is too strong, and soon there will be nobody left who can match her. Hana reassures her, revealing that Hina's next opponent is a national boxing champion. "There's no way Hina can one-shot a fighter like this," she says. The scene transitions to the fourth match, where Hina indeed one-hit KOs the boxing champion. The crowd showers her with applause as she delivers her catchphrase. However, Tenma is now frustrated with this outcome and knows she has to do something. Inside the locker room, Tenma confronts Hina, telling her that she is winning wrong. Hina is confused by this, so Tenma tells her that they all know she is crazy strong, but she needs to start playing with the crowd a bit more. Hina is confused by this request, noting that the audience likes her matches. But Tenma explains that while they like it for now, Valkyria won't survive if Hina keeps this up. Hina asks why, and Tenma tells her that gambling thrives on close fights between evenly matched opponents. If one fighter is obviously much stronger, there's no gamble. Hina, worried, asks if Tenma is asking her to take a dive. Tenma reassures her that she isn't implying that but explains that Valkyria is a show, and businesses need to make money. She adds that their organization is like public fighting, they need matches to seem more even. Hina ponders Tenma's request and responds. If you want fights to be more even, then you'll need to find fighters who's on par with me, for example, someone like you. Suddenly, Hina charges at Tenma and throws a punch, which Tenma dodges. However, Hina quickly follows up with a kick to Tenma's crotch, causing her to double over in pain. Hina then attempts an elbow strike, but Tenma shifts her body, dodging the blow, and retaliates with an elbow strike of her own. Hina blocks the strike and compliments Tenma's strength. Tenma begins to back away, trying to de-escalate the situation, but Hina keeps advancing, wanting to continue the fight. It's interesting that a slowpoke like you can be so strong, Hina says. Tenma tells her she doesn't want to fight, but Hina tries to convince her otherwise. She comes up with an idea, mentioning the chemical weapons she possesses. Aren't you curious where the army of God's chemical weapons are stashed, Hina says. Come on Tenma, let's fight, I promise that if you win, I'll tell you where the weapons are and you'll become a hero. Hina swings at Tenma again, who blocks the attack. Tenma now realizes the rumors about Hina are true. She remembers Iori stating that the chemical weapons had gone missing, which means Hina must have them. This would explain why public safety dropped the case, though Iori wasn't sure if that was the main reason. However, Iori also noted that this could be their chance to make the police owe them if they can find out where the chemical weapons are hidden. Hina advances towards Tenma again, who throws a kick to stop her. Hina jumps over it and attempts to land a superwoman punch, but Tenma dodges it. However, Hina quickly prepares her next attack. Tenma reads this as Hina winds up and throws her punch, which Tenma dodges again, impressing Hina. Hana is also impressed, noting that Tenma is still in fine form and is seeing through all of Hina's blows, even though she's barely reacting. Hina unleashes a barrage of punches at Tenma, who once again dodges her strikes. Hina then throws an overhead elbow, but Tenma ducks it and grabs onto her, forcing her to the ground and trapping her by locking her leg. After taking Hina down, Tenma tells her, "You're really strong, but this is exactly where you fall short." As Tenma tightens her grip, she asks Hina if she's never fought anyone on par with her. She then exposes her fighting tactic, stating that going for full power swings creates a big opening, something she can take advantage of with her lower level skills. Hina says nothing, instead staring intensely at Tenma. Hana laughs at Hina, telling her that Tenma is only being modest and reveals that she went very far in real, legitimate MMA. Hana emphasizes that there is a tangible gap in experience between them. Suddenly, Hina lifts up Tenma with her leg and states, "I now understand that you being weaker than me doesn't translate to being inexperienced, and trying to force a one-hit KO is what's leaving me open?" Hina is again impressed that Tenma figured out her weaknesses. She joyfully tells her, "You've exceeded my expectations a second time, and I know I'll relish this fight with every fiber of my being." Hina then asks, "Will you be my next opponent in the next match?" Tenma replies, "I'd love to be your next opponent, but this is all I'm capable of right now." She reveals to Hina that she has a detached retina, which is why she retired, but didn't want to let go of fighting. So, she did some underground matches instead. Tenma then tells Hina, "I'm not in any shape to go toe-to-toe with someone in their prime like you." With this reveal, Hina realizes why Tenma seemed off during their fight. Tenma points out that she's weaker than Hina, and it's only her experience that's pulling her weight. Hina is disappointed to hear this but tells Tenma that she should hurry and find a fighter who is stronger than her. She then teases Tenma and Hana, asking if they wouldn't like to know where the chemical weapons are located. The scene shifts to Iori, who gets informed that Hina mentioned the chemical bombs in her demands. Hana confirms this and reveals that Hina will tell them where the chemical weapons are if she loses a fight. Iori is excited about this development and tells Hana that she'll take care of it. Iori ends the call and turns to someone, asking, "Did you eat well?" She apologizes for letting them eat at a restaurant of this quality but assures them that fancy food can wait until after their big win. Two women exit the establishment, and one asks Irori, "Is all we have to do is beat some high school brat and win 5 million yen?" Irori confirms this but warns, the girl is not normal. She defeated a former boxing champion with just one strike. We are then introduced to two women, Senna Riko and Senna Riku, who both accepts Irori's offer. Iori is glad to hear this, seeing that the Senna sisters, also known as the Psycho Sisters, showed up at just the right time. And they are the best options she has right now. The scene shifts to a building where two individuals sit in a room having a discussion. The man asks the woman if she's really going to leave his underground fighting organization for a much smaller, insignificant one so suddenly. The woman, named Yuzu Ali, tells the man that she is indeed leaving his org, since the nature of people is to flow where the money lies. She then declares that she will get that 5 million yen. The scene then shifts to a man who was a member of the Army of God. He praises its leader, stating that he never died but merely transcended his human flesh and became a god. He declares that the leader's might is unparalleled and that the Army of God is unstoppable. Another member chimes in, recalling the leader's daughter and remembering her as a nice person who treated everyone well. More members share their stories about their time in the cult. Some praise the leader's daughter and his main goal, while others, who were involved, no longer want to be associated with the cult. It turns out that Iori and Hana are interviewing former members of the Army of God. After hearing their stories, Iori comments, "They're all crazy. I wish I could string them up one by one." Hana shuts her down, saying, "A police officer shouldn't say things like that." She then tells Iori that she's interviewed all the cult members but is confused as to why Iori wanted her to do it. Iori explains that it had to be Hana because a police officer can't conduct informal interviews. Hana freaks out upon hearing that these interviews are informal, but Iori assures her they're officially informal since she got permission from higher-ups. Hana deduces that they're interviewing the cult members to find out about the chemical weapons. Iori responds, "More or less." The scene shifts to Hina during her training session. Iori narrates, stating that they now know for sure Hina has something to do with the chemical weapons, so they can't drop this case. She also couldn't have stolen them alone, which means she has one or more allies, and that's who they're trying to find. Hina places her hand on a large chunk of meat, playing with it gently at first. Then, she unleashes a barrage of attacks, punching and ripping holes through the thick layer of meat with her bare hands. Hana picks up the narration, saying something is troubling her. The scene shifts back to Hana and Iori sitting at a restaurant. She states that every former cult member she's spoken to seemed to have a positive view of Hina. Iori assumes that it's because Hina is the leader's daughter, but Hana also points out that even the ones who left the cult entirely only had words of praise for her. Iori fails to see the issue with that, so Hana asks, "Do you expect every person in the world to like you?" Iori replies, "No way in hell," to which Hana compliments her for having good social awareness. She explains that no matter how popular someone is, there will always be people who go against the grain. Iori questions what Hana just told her, but Hana ignores her and states, "Every person in the cult likes Hina, which is not normal." Iori admits that Hana has a point for a third-rate yakuza. This offends Hana, who asks why Iori has to insult her. She tells Iori she'll never be popular with her foul mouth, but Iori ignores her. She knows she'll have to keep investigating. The scene returns to Hina's training session, where she has ripped the meat to pieces. She wonders if things are going to be okay and hopes that Tenma will make sure she has lots of fun. However, if her match is boring, she'll lose interest entirely. The scene shifts again to Tenma's apartment, where she thinks about the new fighters. She wonders which combatant will fight next. Personally, she thinks Yuzuha Lee is the most important one. Tenma knows they're very lucky to have someone like Yuzuha participating in their organization and thinks she should be their next fight. However, she can't ignore the Senna sisters and knows Hina wouldn't mind fighting both of them at once. She thinks about this for a moment until she gets a better idea. Tenma meets up with Hina at her high school and informs her that she's creating a tournament. She explains that there will be 4 participants, with the winner receiving 5 million yen. She also tells Hina that she has 3 fighters lined up and that Hina is going to enjoy fighting them. Hina, overjoyed by the news, hugs Tenma and says, "I knew I could rely on you." The other fighters have also received the news and accepted the challenge without hesitation, making this the first ever Valkyria tournament. The scene shifts to Valkyria's fifth event, where the tournament is about to begin. The referee announces the fighters. Senna Riko and Senna Riku, aka the Senna sisters. The Revolution Princess, Hina. The explosive Kung Fu girl, Yuzu Ali, the female champion of the underground fighting organization called the Ball of Slaughter. The announcer declares that these girls are the best of the best, and now they're all gathered here tonight for Valkyria's first tournament. The audience erupts with excitement, shocking Tenma, Iori, and Hana. Iori notices that they aren't using a cage this time and questions why. Hana explains that one of their previous matches ended in a drawn-out stalemate that bored the audience, so she decided to remove the cage and implement a ring-out rule. In order for these changes to be made, Hana had to beg Tenma to implement them. Tenma adds that any fighter caught fighting too passively will get a pay cut. She admits that it sucks, but if it means it maintains their momentum then it's necessary. With the fighters ready, the referee announces the first round match, Senna Riku vs Hina. Both fighters are excited to brawl. Riku asks Riko if she's ready to fight for 5 million yen, but Riko tells her she hasn't won yet. Hana comments that Riku is quite confident, while Tenma asks Iori what Riku has in her arsenal. Iori explains that the Senna sisters are dumb but can fight. She mentions that they both have the same style, but their builds make them completely different. Iori adds that despite their low IQ, their fighting sense is remarkable, and they have talent in spades. Don't be shocked if they batter Hina, she warns. Iori states that their physical capabilities are outstanding. Riko, the elder sister, can run the 100-meter dash in under 20 seconds despite her size, while Riku, the younger one, has a time under 11 seconds. Iori also points out that their talent doesn't stop at their legs. In junior high, Riku broke the world record for women's javelin throw in her first track meet, and her elder sister led the junior judo team to the national top 4 with no training or experience. Despite their impressive ability to excel in any sport, they wasted that potential on fighting. However, Iori admits that they're too much to handle as a pair, which surprises Tenma. Tenma remembers back when they were all training at the gym, and out of the three, Iori was the strongest of them all, but unfortunately quit early. If Iori is saying the Senna sisters gave her a challenge, they've definitely piqued Tenma's interest. Returning to the fight, both fighters take their stances as the referee prepares to give the signal to start. Riku tells Hina, "I'm going to break you," to which Hina replies, "I'm looking forward to it." The referee starts the fight, and both girls simultaneously strike each other. However, it's revealed that Hina lands her attack while Riku's is blocked. They throw punches again, but the result remains the same. Both fighters exchange blows, but it's clear that Hina is landing more hits than Riku. Seeing that Riku was able to keep up with Hina, Iori turns to Tenma and asks, "See that Nozomi? Impressive, isn't it?" Tenma, observing, realizes that Riku isn't an average fighter, by the way she's powering through Hina's blows. She can see that Riku is crazy strong for doing this, which means that this must be her game plan. Suddenly, Riku grabs Hina's shoulders and lands a vicious headbutt, causing blood to spew from Hina's forehead. Riku admits she's getting pissed off, and calls out to Hina, stating, "Fighting isn't about technique, it's all about nerve, so you better start gritting your teeth." Riku kicks Hina, but Hina blocks and throws a punch aimed at Riku's chin. Riku counters with an overhead elbow, striking Hina in the face. Tenma is shocked to see Riku dodge Hina's attack despite getting battered a few minutes ago. She realizes that Riku has already adapted to Hina's fighting style. Hina and Riku exchange blows until Riku rushes forward, blocking Hina's attack and landing a knee strike. Hina blocks the knee strike and backs away. Tenma comments that Riku is gaining momentum and admits she's jealous of Riku's natural fighting instincts. Riko, watching from the sidelines, is proud of her sister's performance, stating, "She's always been able to walk the walk and excel in whatever she puts her mind to." Hina thinks for a moment and comes up with a solution to her struggle. Riku slowly walks towards Hina, who patiently waits. Suddenly, Riku strikes Hina with a hard kick to the gut. Tenma knows that Hina must have felt the power of that strike, and deduces that Riku is not here to grapple, and is instead going in with heavy blows. Riku sends another strike, which Hina blocks, but Riku doesn't let up. She hits Hina with a combination, a right elbow, left knee, right punch, and a left elbow strike. Riku knows exactly what's coming next as Riku unleashes her Carnage Rush on Hina, striking her with a flurry of blows. Iori cheers for Riku, but Tenma tells her not to scream so loud. Hana wonders if it's really going to be this easy, knowing they don't have a guarantee that Hina will tell them anything about the chemical weapons. She also knows that Hina is Valkyria's star fighter, and her losing could be a problem. Hina continues to block Riku's Carnage Rush, waiting for her moment to strike. She spots an opening and delivers a punch to Riku's chin, making her stumble. Riku realizes she was close to losing, and realizes that Hina has matched her pace. Yuzawa Lee, who's also spectating, notes that shrugging off punishment is one thing, but being caught off guard is another. She's impressed that Hina managed to deflect every blow Riku threw at her, calling her defense outstanding. Hina takes a moment to idle, then faces Riku. She compliments Riku's speed and admits, "You're the strongest one I've faced in this tournament so far." But now, Hina confidently declares, "I'm going to destroy you. Try to stop me if you can." Hina begins to activate the tendons in her calf muscle, saying, "They feel good." Meanwhile, Riku realizes her Carnage Rush didn't take down Hina and wonders what Hina is planning. During their exchange, Riku noticed that Hina had an orthodox stance earlier, but now her guard is down. Riku assumes Hina wants her to beat her up, so she rushes forward and throws a punch, which misses. However, she follows up with a knee strike that connects, staggering Hina. Riku then lands a blow to Hina's face, promising, "I'll put you in the ground, one broken bone at a time." Riku prepares to launch another Carnage Rush and unleashes it on Hina. But, to everyone's surprise, Hina immediately counters with a devastating strike to Riku's gut, causing her to vomit blood from the impact. Undeterred, Riku immediately recovers, and punches Hina in the face. Hina twists her head at just the right moment to nullify the damage, then leaps into the air, grabs Riku's arm midair, and lands on Riku's head, smashing it into the mat. Tenma and the others are shocked as they witness this. Tenma admits not even sparring drills are that clean, and wonders how Hina pulled that off. Hina looks down at Riku and asks, "Isn't this fight fun? Get up so we can continue." But Riku is knocked out, ending the match. Hina is disappointed that the fight is over so quickly. Yuzawa Lee analyzes what just happened and realizes that Hina has irregular springs. She noticed unnatural movements during the fight and guesses that Hina's tendons might be the cause. She deduces that Hina possesses tendons that are stronger than those of ordinary people. She notes that the tendons of the human body are like springs, which means that stronger tendons allow for astonishing explosive power in a short moment. Lee deduces that Hina's superhuman tendons give her the capacity for superhuman power and speed, which could mean Hina is hiding even more weapons in her arsenal. Inside the ring, Hina tells Riku, "Our match was a lot of fun. I'd love to do this again if your spirit isn't broken, just drop by whenever you're ready." However, Riku isn't happy about her loss, evident by the look on her face. She growls, "Next time we meet, I'm going to kill you." With match 1 ending in Hina's victory, the crowd erupts into cheers, clearly enjoying the fight. Iori, however, is still irritated that they couldn't get the location of the bombs. Hana tells her, "What's done is done," while Tenma just hopes that the next match maintains the same energy. The stage is now set for Yuzawa Lee vs Senna Riko. Iori states that Senna Riko is the eldest of the Senna sisters, who are also known as the Savage Sisters. Giving the sisters the title of Savage confuses Tenma, but Hana tells her that the younger one is quite savage, so the name makes sense. Iori explains that 80% of what you hear about the Senna sisters revolves around Riko. While Riko can still be reasoned with, Iori describes Riko as death-walking on 2 legs. Riko calls out to Lee, "I'm going to knock you all the way back to where you came from." Lee responds sarcastically, "How kind of you to save me the plane tickets. But I'll decline your offer. Instead, I know where I'll send you, the zoo. I'm sure they'll be glad to see you back." Tenma is well aware of who Yuzawa Lee is, knowing she's a very famous figure in the underground fighting scene. She's the female champion of the underground organization Slaughter Coliseum and is easily the biggest name here. Tenma adds that there aren't many females in underground fighting with a bigger reputation than Lee. Upon hearing this, Irori asks about the Slaughter Coliseum, wondering who runs the organization. Hina, already knowing the answer, states that the Slaughter Coliseum is run by the Sanba family, a part of the Niwa clan, one of Japan's biggest 3 crime syndicates. Irori asks Hina if she's aware that they're making it look like they're daring the Niwa clan to kill them. Hina acknowledges this, knowing the Niwa clan might think they're trying to snipe Yuzawa Lee, even though that's not their intention. A small-time Yakuza group like hers has no chance against the more developed syndicates. Irori questions why they're even letting Lee fight, since if she gets hurt, they'll have to pay a price. Hina admits she was thinking the same thing, but having Yuzawa Lee participate in a small-time org like theirs, given her reputation, is a huge opportunity. Tenma wonders if Lee is planning to transfer to their organization, but Hina tells her that if Lee did, it would tank her reputation. This is basically a rental situation, Hina explains. Hearing this, Tenma questions why Lee would even want to compete in the first place. Irori states the obvious, she's competing for the 5 million yen. Hina chimes in, asking Tenma, do you think we have money to burn? Tenma just hopes that Lee doesn't get badly injured in this fight. Returning to the ring, the referee asks the fighters if they're ready. Both confirm they are, and the referee starts the fight. Lee takes her stance, urging Riko to come at her. Tenma recognizes the stance, noting that it looks like Sini Lui Quan, a Chinese martial art. Riko walks toward Lee, taunting, "What are you, Jackie Chan or something?" But as soon as Riko gets close, Lee strikes her in the face before Riko can finish her sentence. Lee begins preparing another attack, utilizing a strategy that involves blinding her opponent and sealing the deal, a tactic she's confident will secure her victory. Suddenly, Riko throws a punch at Lee, who blocks the strike in time but gets knocked back. Riko is surprised that Lee managed to block her punch and calls her a tough girl. Meanwhile, Lee is shocked by the force behind Riko's punch, admitting that for a moment, she thought her arm was broken. She then tells Riko that her aim isn't bad, for a blind woman. Taking a closer look at Riko, we see she has been temporarily blinded by Lee. However, Riko is used to people throwing stuff in her eyes during fights, so she has a strategy for it. Irori states that between the Senna sisters, Riku is the most human, while Riko is more like a wild animal. She explains that any hit that doesn't take Riko down only makes her angrier. Hina wonders if Riko had aimed for Lee's presence. Lee teases Riko, saying, "That wasn't even a strategy, you buffoon." In her thoughts, Lee deduces that Riko is fighting purely on instinct. However, Lee knows Riko's sight will return soon and plans to defeat her swiftly, as Riko isn't her main target. Suddenly, Riko raises her arm, preparing to strike Lee's head like a hammer. Irori recognizes this attack immediately as Riko charges toward Lee. Yuzuha takes this as a sign of disrespect, and strikes Riko in the gut. Unfortunately for Lee, Riko shrugs off the attack and slams her fist into Lee's head. Lee attempts to block the attack as it comes down on her but is knocked off balance by the force of the blow. Riko follows up with another punch, which Lee tries to stop, but it pierces through her defense and connects with her stomach. Surprisingly, Lee endures the impact and immediately strikes back, unleashing a barrage of blows at Riko, who blocks them all. They both stop for a moment, and Riko taunts Lee, "What's wrong? I don't see any zoos around here." Irori wonders how Lee is still on her feet after taking and enduring that strike from Riko. Tenma also tries to figure it out, but Hina chimes in, stating that Lee used Hua Jin. Tenma thinks so too but isn't entirely sure what Hua Jin is. Irori also doesn't know and asks Hina to explain. Hina obliges and gets straight to the point. Hua Jin is a Chinese martial art technique that redirects the force of an attack. She then asks Irori if her explanation made sense. Annoyed by Hina's reply, Irori asks Hina if she's mocking her. Lee is a bit shaken by Riko's sudden rush, and realizes that her Hua Jin didn't deflect all the force from Riko's attack. She describes Riko's fighting style as more akin to a bear than a boar. Riko taunts Lee again, demanding, "Don't stop now. Show me that drunken boxing style next." Seeing that Riko is unaffected by her attack, Lee is sure her fat Jin had connected and was dead on. She wonders if Riko is so feeble-minded that she hasn't noticed the damage or is simply ignoring the pain. Suddenly, Riko leans back, stretching as she winds up another attack. Lee can't believe what she's seeing, wondering if Riko is stupid enough to do what she thinks she's doing. Riko tenses up the muscles in her arms and swings them like sledgehammers at Lee, who barely dodges the attack. Riko attacks again, repeatedly swinging her arms as she advances toward Lee, forcing her back. Lee eventually hits the wall as Riko winds up another attack. But Lee stops her just at the last moment, launching an attack that blows Riko back. Tenma and Hina both compliment Lee's attack, with Tenma noticing that Lee used her right leg against the wall to blast Riko away with every ounce of her strength. Tenma thinks this is a very smart hasty decision that Yuzuha made, but Hina disagrees, stating that it's the exact opposite. Impressed, Riko tells Yuzuha, "Not bad, Bruce Lee." Yuzuha responds, saying, "I thought I was Jackie Chan, come on, show me what you got, you freak." Riko prepares another strike as Lee rushes toward her. Irori compares the sisters' attacks, stating that if Riku's attacks are like machine guns, Riko's are like nukes. Irori knows that if Riko gets it right, she can blow through a polycarbonate shield with her fist. Riko tells Lee, "You're dead," as she charges forward. Lee stands still with her palms facing Riko, attempting to stop her attack. As Riko gets close, she sends a punch at Lee, who realizes too late that her plan won't work. She takes the punch head-on but uses Hua Jin again to redirect the force and moves to Riko's side. Riko catches on and tries to strike Lee, but this time, Lee successfully lands her Hua Jin, blowing Riko back into the wall. As she rushes towards her. Furious, Riko shouts at Lee, "That's not going to work on me." Lee then slams into Riko, utilizing a technique called Tai Shan Kao. The impact is so great that it causes Riko to cough up blood, finally taking significant damage. Riko attempts to stop Lee, but Lee quickly uses Hua Jin again, pushing Riko into the wall. Riko tries to hold onto the wall, so that she doesn't fall out the ring, but Lee strikes her again, knocking Riko over the wall, and outside the ring. The referee rules it as a ring out and announces Yuzuha Lee as the winner of the match. Irori is surprised that the Senna sisters are both out of the tournament, while Tenma admits the Chinese martial arts are no joke. Hina, impressed, calls Yuzuha a flexible fighter, remembering when Yuzuha tried to face Riko's blow head-on, but changed course before it hit her. She then slipped to Riko's side and managed to push Riko to the wall, which was her plan all along, using the wall to double the strength of her Fat Jin, which prevented the impact from dispersing. With both Senna sisters defeated, the final showdown is set, Hina vs Yuzuha Lee. The scene shifts straight to the match, where both fighters are already on stage, ready to go. Like a true Chinese martial artist, Lee screams battle cries, reminiscent of Jackie Chan, which Hina assumes that Lee is eager to fight. Watching from the sidelines, Irori and Hana engage in a conversation. Irori can't believe that Riko lost, but Hana tells her it's to be expected since Yuzuha Lee is the champion of the Slaughter Coliseum. Irori, curious about the Slaughter Coliseum, asks Hana what kind of level the organization operates at. Hana explains that the Slaughter Coliseum is an old, long-standing org in Japan, where many other orgs got their start. The Slaughter Coliseum's matches have no rules and were once known as Japan's most hardcore underground fighting scene. Irori asks if even killing is allowed, which Hana confirms but adds that there aren't many casualties. Hana explains that the quality of fighters inside the org far exceeds Valkyria's level, as many fighters use various forms of martial arts. In a place dominated by modern martial arts, Yuzuha Lee rose to become the queen with her kung fu. Irori points out that Lee's kung fu was actually named wushu, the modernized form. However, this form of martial arts is weak against contemporary slugfests. Hana agrees but states that Yuzuha Lee still became champion despite that weakness, which means she's incredibly talented. Hana remarks that if Hina wants to win, she'll need to lock in. Returning to the stage, Hina jumps repeatedly while Yuzuha moves around sporadically, catching Hina's attention. Yuzuha asks Hina, "Is my warm-up routine bothering you?" "It's a concentration technique taught by my school of Kung Fu, Senni Liuhaquan." Lee then offers to teach Hina the routine if she's interested, but Hina replies, "Maybe some other time." Witnessing Yuzuha's warm-up routine, Riku can't believe her sister lost to her. However, Riko tells her, looks can be deceiving, and Lee is really strong. The referee gets ready to start the match as Hina and Lee prepare themselves. Shortly after the referee signals the start, both fighters remain motionless, confusing the audience. But Tenma knows that Lee is an experienced fighter, so she wouldn't use the same move every time. We then enter a flashback between Lee and Tenma. Lee is shocked that Tenma is offering her an extra $1,000,000 if she wins. Tenma confirms, stating it's an extra prize from Valkyria. Lee responds, "You're being quite exorbitant for a new org." She then deduces that Tenma is the owner of Valkyria, and asks why she would want her to win. Tenma explains that her organization doesn't need an uncontested fighter, as it could be bad for business, which is something Hina is currently on track to achieve. She adds, "As new blood, we need rivals to keep our momentum going." Lee now understands that Tenma has her own troubles. She also knows that Hina is a good fighter but claims she's not the best. Her thoughts are interrupted as Hina makes a move. Yuzuha quickly rushes toward Hina, and as their hands are about to make contact, a cracking sound is heard. The sound comes from Lee stepping on Hina's foot, followed by Lee punching her in the face. However, Hina manages to sway around the blow, but Lee keeps attacking, sending a flurry of blows at Hina, who dodges them all. Hina continues to slip around Lee despite her foot being stuck. She then retaliates, striking Lee in the face and forcing her to back away. Yuzuha admits that her combinations aren't the best, but for Hina to evade every one of her blows is truly a superhuman feat. However, her surprise attack was successful, as a large bump appears on Hina's left foot, shocking everyone at how badly damaged it is. Lee now knows that Hina's movements are sealed and is confident the fight should be smooth sailing from here. Hina playfully admits that Lee caught her. The move used on Hina is called Jinjiao, a thunderous stomping technique taught in various schools of Kung Fu. A master of this technique can produce enough power to shatter the earth. Lee watches Hina intently, noticing her lack of reaction to the injury on her foot, which makes Lee assume she's highly disciplined. Deep in thought, Lee notes that in a battle between a practitioner of contemporary martial arts and Kung Fu, the biggest problem is the practitioner's footwork. This is why Lee used Jinjiao to limit Hina's movement and take away her advantage. Hina moves her injured foot slightly, testing its mobility. She begins making her way toward Lee, who patiently waits, confident that Hina's leg is now useless and that it also affects her right leg's ability to maintain balance. Lee knows all Hina can do at this point is use her hands to attack. Even if Hina plans to use her elbows, Lee is confident she can handle her limited points of attack. Suddenly, in typical anime fashion, Hina somehow roundhouse kicks Lee in the face despite her injury. Lee is obviously confused but has no time to think about it, as Hina follows up with another kick to Lee's gut. The impact causes immense pain, knocking Lee back. Hana notices that Hina attacked with her left foot, which makes her wonder if it's even fractured. Riku, on the other hand, notes that Hina would have attacked with her left foot even if it was in perfect shape, making Riku assume that Hina doesn't care about her injury at all. Tenma agrees and notes that Lee had actually made the first move, but that wasn't going to stop Hina. Hina tells Lee, "Look alive. It's been a long time since I've had a new experience, despite all the times I've been hurt." Hina then admits, "In all my time fighting, I've never broken my foot." This news shocks everyone. Hina continues, "The injury hurts a lot. It feels clammy and is dripping with sweat. Moving is really tough for me, but I thank you, Yuzuha, for giving me this amazing experience." Seeing Hina's lack of concern for her injury unsettles Lee, who then proceeds to attack Hina and retreat. The audience is confused as to why Lee is backing away, knowing she should be pressing the attack. Hina calls out to Lee, "Is something wrong? Now would be a good time to take your chance, with me at a disadvantage." Tenma understands what Lee is going through, as she can relate to fighting Hina. Tenma describes Hina as being pure, while simultaneously being at the bottom of insanity. Lee continues to back away, but seeing the flaw in this strategy, Riko tries to warn her. However, it's too late, as Lee eats another kick from Hina. But Hina can feel that something is off. It's revealed that she used her Ring Qi Gong technique to nullify the impact. She remarks, "I will not waver. I'm determined to get that prize money." Lee retaliates with a strike of her own, knocking Hina back, though Hina doesn't stumble. Lee charges forward and strikes again. Hina blocks the first attack, but the second one connects. Riko sees that Lee is trying to finish the fight, but her sister Riko doesn't understand how. Riko explains, since Hina's left foot is damaged, she can't stand her ground if she's getting rushed down. Riko still doesn't get it, so Riko simply states, this is Lee's do-or-die moment. Lee catches Hina with the Hu Daobang Shan technique, slamming both her elbow and knee onto Hina's head, knocking her back. Tenma notices something and sees that Hina is smiling, clearly enjoying every minute of the fight. Hina recovers and takes a stance for countering, but the others don't believe it will be enough to stop Yuzua. Lee moves in for the finisher and launches her Fa Jin attack, while Hina prepares her own attack, using all the tendons in her arm. Sometime later, when Yuzua was asked to recall this moment, she remembers a ray of light passing through her. Hina had unleashed her Rikado under heaven. Yuzua freezes for a moment, making everyone wonder why she stopped. Shortly after, she starts bleeding from her eyes, nose and mouth, as she then drops to the floor, confusing the audience even more. Everyone is shocked and confused about what just happened, but Tenma saw it all. Tenma points out that Hina stretched her strong tendons to their absolute limit and released the force all at once, generating an insane amount of kinetic energy. She describes it as a tightly coiled spring in her arm. She was creating that force with just her arm, and yet the power was still immense, Tenma explains. Coupled with Lee's Fa Jin, Hina's strike became even more powerful, leading to a knockout with just a single arm. This tournament is ultimately won by Hina. Riko asks her sister if she caught what happened, explaining, I saw that Hina has mastered some wizardry, perfect, precise control over her body. I think I'm starting to see Hina's real character. Riko, having no clue what her sister is talking about, pretends to understand. Hina knew she was right to trust Tenma. She admits, it's been a long time since I used Rikudo on someone. Having enjoyed the fight, she can't wait to see what Tenma brings her next. With this tournament now reaching its conclusion, we've now come to the end of this video. But you can continue reading this manga for yourself if you're interested. The manga's name is Strike It Rich and is made by the same creator of Kengan, Ashura and Omega, so you know what you'll be getting is top tier. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel, as I am very close to hitting 1K subscribers. My journey on YouTube has been a tough one so far, so I would really appreciate it if you support me on my journey. With that said, have a nice day or night, and I'll see you in the next video.